Her name was Brielle Montgomery. She was 29 years old, and the afternoon her husband abandoned her at a Texaco station in Barstow, California, with their 5-month-old daughter screaming in her arms, was the afternoon she learned that forever was a lie people told to make promises feel real. It was August 3, 2018, around 3:47 inches the afternoon on a Friday. The temperature outside was 105 degrees, the kind of desert heat that made the air shimmer and stick to your skin like plastic wrap. Brielle had been married to Trevor Montgomery for 3 years. He was 32, worked in commercial real estate in Newport Beach, and pulled in around $200,000 a year from development deals and investor meetings. They lived in a gated community called Seaside Terrace with an ocean view and a pool, the kind of place where the security guard knew your name and waved at you every morning. They had met at a charity gala in Orange County 4 years ago. Brielle had been coordinating the event, barely making rent on her Studio City apartment she shared with 2 roommates. She made $38,000 a year and ate ramen 3 times a week. Trevor had been one of the donors. He walked up to her during the silent auction and said, "You are doing an incredible job tonight. This is the best run event I have been to all year." He asked for her number. She gave it to him, thinking he would never call. He called the next morning and asked her to dinner. That first date turned into a second, then a third, then weekend trips to Napa Valley, where they stayed at vineyards and drank wine that cost more per bottle than Brielle made in a week. Helicopter rides over Malibu at sunset, where Trevor pointed out houses he was developing. Dinners at restaurants where the waiters knew his name. He made her feel special, chosen, like she was the most important person in the world. 6 months in, he told her, "I am going to marry you someday." A year in, he proposed on a beach in Santa Barbara. They got married at a vineyard in Temecula. 200 guests, white roses everywhere, champagne toasts. Brielle wore a dress that made her feel like a princess. Trevor cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. He promised to love her forever, to take care of her, to give her the life she deserved. Brielle had believed him. Brielle had quit her job as an event coordinator when Sienna was born. Trevor said they did not need the money, and he wanted her home with the baby. She had been grateful at the time. Grateful to not have to choose between pumping milk in a bathroom stall and making it to client meetings on time. Grateful to watch her daughter's first smile, first laugh, first time rolling over on the nursery floor. She should have seen the signs. The late nights Trevor claimed were investor dinners. The phone calls he took in the garage. The way he started looking at her like she was furniture he had grown tired of. But she was exhausted from night feedings and diaper changes and the fog of early motherhood. She did not see anything except her baby and her next 3 hours of sleep. They had been driving from Newport Beach to San Diego that afternoon. Trevor said he had a meeting with potential investors for a new development project in La Jolla. He wanted Brielle and Sienna to come along, make it a family trip. They could hit the beach after, get dinner somewhere nice, maybe stay overnight at the Hotel del Coronado. Sienna had been crying for the last hour of the drive. That newborn cry that sounded like a car alarm going off inside your skull. The air conditioning in Trevor's Tesla barely worked, and the heat was making everything worse. Trevor pulled off Interstate 15 into a Texaco station on the outskirts of Barstow. Middle of nowhere, just dessert and gas pumps and a small mini-mart with bars on the windows. "Babe, go grab some baby food from the store," Trevor said, putting the car in park. "Sienna is running low, right? I will pay for gas out here." Inside the mini-mart, the air conditioning was a blessing. Sienna stopped crying for a moment. Distracted by the fluorescent lights overhead, Brielle walked to the refrigerated baby food section where they kept the premium organic options. She picked up 3 jars carefully, organic butternut squash and quinoa blend with added DHA, wild blueberry and purple carrot with probiotics, grass-fed beef and sweet potato with bone broth, the expensive kind Trevor always insisted on. The kind that came in glass jars with minimalist labels and promised optimal brain development. $18 per jar at this gas station, but Trevor always said Sienna deserved the best nutrition money could buy. She stood in line behind 2 other customers, bouncing Sienna on her hip, scrolling through her phone with her free hand. A text from her sister, Gemma, asking if they wanted to meet up in San Diego for brunch on Sunday. A notification from Instagram showing someone had liked the photo she posted yesterday of Sienna in her new sun hat. When she got to the register, The cashier was an older black woman with tired eyes and a name tag that said Dorothy. "That will be $55.50, honey," Dorothy said. Brielle handed her their joint credit card. The one Trevor had given her 3 years ago, with her name embossed on the front. The one she used for groceries and Target runs and everything else that kept their household running. Dorothy swiped it once. The machine beeped. She tried again. Another beep. "I am sorry, sweetheart. This card is not going through." Brielle felt confusion first. Not panic, just confusion. "Can you try it one more time?" Dorothy did. Same result. It says declined. That does not make sense. There is money in that account. Brielle pulled out her phone to check their banking app, but when she opened it, the password did not work. She tried again. Incorrect password. She tried the backup password. Same thing. A cold feeling started spreading through her chest. "I have cash. Let me just check how much I have." She dug through her wallet. $18. 3 5s and 3 1s. Not nearly enough for $55.50. "Let me just go ask my husband," Brielle said, already moving toward the door. "He is outside. There must be some mistake." "Take the food, honey," Dorothy said quietly. "Bring the money back when you can. That baby needs to eat." Brielle felt tears burning in her eyes at the kindness. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I will be right back." She pushed through the door into the wall of heat, Sienna back to crying now, her little face red and sweaty. Brielle walked toward where they had parked. Spot number 4, right next to the air pump. She was looking down at Sienna, trying to soothe her, adjusting the baby food jars in the plastic bag, when she reached the spot. And stopped. The parking space was empty. Brielle stood there with $55 worth of baby food in one hand and her daughter in the other arm, staring at nothing. At oil stains on concrete, at heat waves rising off black asphalt, at the empty space where Trevor's black Tesla had been parked 5 minutes ago. "Trevor?" She said it quietly at first, like maybe she was confused about which pump he had pulled up to. She turned in a circle, scanning every car in the lot. A white pickup truck, a red sedan, a blue minivan, no black Tesla. "Trevor," louder now, her voice cracking. "Trevor." She walked around the side of the building, nothing. Around the back, nothing. Back to the front, to the road, looking in both directions down the highway, nothing. Sienna was screaming now, that high-pitched wail of a baby who is hot and tired and hungry. Brielle pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called Trevor. It rang once, then a robotic voice. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." Her brain could not process that. She had called Trevor an hour ago when they stopped for lunch. His number worked then. She tried again, same message. She called again. And again. And again. 17 times total, standing in that parking lot while the sun beat down and her baby cried and people walking in and out of the mini-marts stared at her like she was crazy. Every single call. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." She stood in that Texaco parking lot, in 105-degree heat, and she understood with perfect clarity. Trevor Montgomery had driven away and left her there. Her husband, the father of her child, the man who had promised to love her forever, at a ceremony in Temecula surrounded by 200 guests and white roses and champagne toasts. He had sent her into that mini-mart so he would not have to see her face when he erased her from his life. Brielle went back inside and told Dorothy what happened. The older woman's face filled with sympathy and anger. She let Brielle use the store phone to call her sister Gemma in Portland. Gemma wired her $200 through Western Union. It took 4 hours to process. Brielle sat on a bench outside that Texaco with Sienna for 4 hours, watching every black car that passed on the highway, praying one of them would be Trevor coming back to say it was all a mistake. None of them were. When the money came through, she took a Greyhound bus back to Newport Beach. 6 hours with a crying baby and the stares of other passengers who looked at her with pity and annoyance. She fed Sienna the expensive baby food with a plastic spoon she borrowed from the bus driver. She changed diapers in the tiny bus bathroom. She held her daughter and tried not to fall apart. She arrived at Seaside Terrace at 11 p.m., exhausted and terrified and still hoping there was some explanation. The security guard at the gate was Paulo. He had waved at her every morning for 2 years, complimented Sienna's outfits, asked how the baby was sleeping. "Mrs. Montgomery." He would not look at her, would not meet her eyes. "I cannot let you in." What? Paulo, I live here. My baby needs to sleep. What are you talking about? Mr. Montgomery called this afternoon, around 4 p.m. He gave specific instructions. Paulo's voice was strained. You are not allowed on the property. The words hit her like physical blows. Trevor called? He called you? Where is he? Is he inside? Paulo, please, my baby. I am just following orders, ma'am. He said you are not to be let in under any circumstances. I am sorry. Brielle stood there in the California night with her 5-month-old daughter, screaming from exhaustion and hunger, staring at the gates of the home she had decorated and painted and thought was hers, and realized her own husband had erased her from his life so completely that he called ahead to make sure she would be locked out like a criminal. That night, she spent her last bit of Gemma's money on a Motel 6 in Huntington Beach. $29 for a room that smelled like cigarettes and had stains on the carpet she tried not to look at. There was no crib. She laid Sienna in an empty dresser drawer with a folded towel as a mattress. Her daughter finally stopped crying around midnight, exhausted into sleep. Brielle sat on the floor in the corner of that motel room and cried until her throat was raw and her eyes were so swollen she could barely see. And then, as she sat there in the dark, with the sound of highway traffic outside and the smell of cigarettes soaking into her clothes, her mind started going back, replaying the last 3 months like a movie she had been too tired to pay attention to the first time. The late nights started in May. Trevor would text her around 7 p.m., meeting running long. Do not wait up. She would eat dinner alone, heat up his plate and leave it in the microwave, fall asleep on the couch waiting for him. He would come home at 10 p.m., then 11, then midnight, smelling perfume she did not recognize. Long day? She would ask. You have no idea, he would say. And he would go straight to the shower without kissing her hello. The phone calls started. His phone would ring, and he would look at the screen and his whole face would change. I need to take this work thing. And he would walk out to the garage or into the bathroom or out to the backyard. Once, Brielle had followed him and stood outside the bathroom door, listening. She heard him laugh, a soft laugh, an intimate laugh, the kind of laugh he used to give her. I miss you too, she heard him say. Soon, I promise. I just need to figure out the logistics. When he came out, she had asked who it was. Just Richard Chen, he said. You know how he is, always calling about deals. But Richard Chen was 65 years old and had a voice like gravel. The person on the other end of that call had made Trevor's voice go soft and young. The overnight trips started. Houston for 3 days. Investor meeting. Then, Seattle for the weekend. Property tour. Then, San Francisco. Big deal closing. Brielle had been too exhausted to question it. Sienna was colicky. Brielle was up 5 times a night, walking the hallways, bouncing and shushing and crying along with her daughter. When Trevor was gone, she almost felt relieved. One less person to worry about. One less meal to cook. She should have noticed that he stopped touching her, stopped kissing her goodbye in the mornings, stopped asking about her day, stopped looking at Sienna like she was a miracle, and started looking at her like she was an interruption. She should have noticed the new cologne, the nicer suits, the way he started going to the gym at 6 a.m. even though he hated mornings. The way he would smile at his phone and then quickly lock the screen when Brielle walked into the room. She should have noticed that he stopped saying, I love you, at the end of phone calls. That their joint bank account started having unexplained withdrawals. $200 here, $500 there, $1,500 for business expenses that he could never quite explain when she asked. She should have noticed that he stopped making plans for their future, stopped talking about buying a bigger house or having another baby or taking a vacation to Hawaii like they had always dreamed. She should have noticed that he was leaving, slowly, piece by piece, phone call by phone call, late night by late night. But she had been so tired, so bone-deep exhausted from being a new mother, so focused on keeping Sienna alive and fed and dry and safe, so convinced that this was just what marriage looked like after you had kids, that every couple went through this phase, that it would get better. And now, sitting on the floor of a $29 motel room, with her baby asleep in a dresser drawer, Brielle understood. Trevor had not left her at a gas station on a random Friday in August. He had been leaving her for months. The gas station was just where he finally finished the job. But 5 years later, Trevor Montgomery would see what Brielle became after he threw her away. Let me tell you what happened in between. The next morning, Brielle called her parents. Her father, Marcus, drove the 2 hours from Riverside to Huntington Beach to pick them up. He was 62 years old, retired from the army, the kind of man who did not show emotion easily. But when he saw his daughter standing outside that motel with a baby on her hip and tear-stained cheeks, his face crumpled. "Baby girl," was all he said. Then, he took Sienna from her arms and held his granddaughter, while Brielle collapsed into sobs against his chest. Her mother, Gloria, was waiting at their house in Riverside when they arrived. She had already made up the guest bedroom, had already gone to Target and bought diapers, formula, and baby wipes with money they did not really have to spare. "You are going to be okay," Gloria said, holding her daughter's face in both hands. "Do you hear me? You are going to survive this. We are going to make sure of it." Brielle wanted to believe her. But sitting in her childhood bedroom that night, looking at the same lavender walls she had painted when she was 16, she felt like she had traveled backward in time. Like all the years of college and career and marriage had been erased. Like she was nobody again. For the first week, Brielle spent every waking moment trying to reach Trevor, trying to understand what happened, trying to get some explanation that made sense. She called his office every day. His secretary, Patricia, sounded genuinely confused the first time. "Mrs. Montgomery, Trevor resigned last Thursday. He sent an email at 4 a.m. saying it was effective immediately. We all thought you knew." 4 a.m. The morning before the gas station. Trevor had quit his job in the middle of the night and never told her. She called his parents in Sacramento. Trevor's mother, Carol, answered on the third ring. Her voice was cold. "We have not heard from Trevor in over a year. Whatever mess he has gotten himself into, it is not our problem. And frankly, Brielle, you should have seen this coming. That boy was never going to be a good husband or father." The line went dead. She called their friends, the couples they used to have dinner with, the people from Trevor's work, Trevor's college roommate. Nobody knew anything, or if they did, they were not telling her. She tried to access their bank accounts online. Every password had been changed. She called the bank and they told her Trevor had removed her as an authorized user the day before the gas station. She had no legal access to any of their money. She tried to file a missing persons report. The police officer who took the report looked at her with something close to pity. "Ma'am, your husband is not missing. He left. Adults are allowed to leave their marriages. There is no crime here. But he abandoned his daughter. You would need to prove abandonment in family court. That is a civil matter, not criminal. You need a lawyer, not a police report." Brielle could not afford a lawyer. She could barely afford diapers. 2 weeks after the gas station, Brielle got a job waiting tables at Denny's. Night shift, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., Thursday through Sunday. It was the only place that would hire her with zero recent work experience and a baby at home. They paid $9.50 an hour, plus tips. Her first night, she cried in the bathroom during her break. Her feet hurt from shoes that did not fit right. Her back hurt from carrying heavy trays. Her arms hurt from the constant motion. And her heart hurt from the look on Sienna's face when Gloria had taken her from Brielle's arms so Brielle could leave for work. She made $42 in tips that first night. 8 hours of work for $42. But she came back the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. She learned to smile at customers even when they were rude. Learned to move fast and never complain. Learned to take Friday night drunk college kids. She learned that this was survival, that this was what you did when you had a baby and no husband and no other choice. By month 3, Brielle realized one job was not enough. Even with her parents helping with rent and food, she needed money for Sienna's doctor visits, for clothes as the baby grew, for the things that kept adding up no matter how carefully she budgeted. She got a second job cleaning houses through an agency called Spotless Home Services. They paid $25 an hour, but the houses were massive and took 4 to 6 hours to clean. She worked Saturdays and Sundays during the day, then went straight to her Denny's shift at night. The houses belonged to people who lived the life Brielle used to live. Gated communities, ocean views, closets bigger than her childhood bedroom. She scrubbed their toilets and mopped their floors and vacuumed their carpets and tried not to think about how she used to live in a house just like these. Once, she cleaned a house in Seaside Terrace, 3 streets away from where she used to live with Trevor. She saw Paulo at the guard gate when she drove in with the cleaning company van. He looked away. The house took her 7 hours to clean. Every bathroom, every floor, every surface. When she finished, the owner came home and walked through with her clipboard, checking Brielle's work. She found a single streak on one mirror and docked Brielle $50 from her pay. Brielle said nothing, just nodded and left and cried in the van on the way to her next house. By month 6, Brielle added a third job, freelance social media management for small businesses. A yoga studio paid her $200 a month to post 3 times a week and respond to comments. A coffee shop paid her $150 for the same. A boutique that sold overpriced candles paid her $100. She worked on her laptop during Sienna's naps, during the 30-minute breaks between houses, during the slow times at Denny's, when she was supposed to be folding napkins, but instead was scheduling posts and writing captions. $450 a month for work that took every spare minute she had. She was working 70 to 80 hours a week between all 3 jobs. She saw Sienna for maybe 2 hours a day. Her parents did everything else, fed her, bathed her, rocked her to sleep. Watched her take her first steps at 9 months old, while Brielle was scrubbing someone's bathtub in Laguna Beach. Gloria sent her a video. Sienna taking 3 wobbly steps before falling on her diaper-padded bottom and laughing. Brielle watched it on her phone while sitting in her car between cleaning jobs and sobbed so hard she could not breathe. This was not how it was supposed to be. She was supposed to be there for those moments. She was supposed to be the one teaching her daughter to walk and talk and be a person. Instead, she was cleaning other people's houses and serving other people's food and missing her own daughter's childhood. The first year was pure survival, just making it day to day. Food, diapers, keeping the lights on, trying not to drown. The second year was when the anger came. White-hot rage that burned in her chest at 3 a.m. when she was serving eggs to drunk college kids who spent more on one meal than she made in tips all night. Rage at Trevor for getting to disappear while she struggled. Rage at herself for not seeing it coming. Rage at the universe for letting this happen. One night at Denny's, a man in his 30s left her a 5-cent tip on a $60 bill. Just a nickel sitting in the middle of the table like a joke. When she picked it up, there was a note underneath. Smile more. Maybe you would get better tips. Brielle walked into the kitchen and threw the nickel across the room as hard as she could. It hit the wall and bounced off. Her manager, a woman named Rita who had worked there for 20 years, just looked at her and said, "Bad table? I am so tired," Brielle said. And she was not talking about that night. She was talking about the whole 2 years. The exhaustion that went bone deep. That made her forget what it felt like to not be tired. "I know, baby," Rita said. "But you keep showing up. That is what matters. You keep showing up." Brielle went back out to the floor and kept working. Because what other choice did she have? Have you ever worked multiple jobs just to survive? Because what happens next will change everything for Brielle. 2 years and 3 months after the gas station, Brielle got a last-minute call from Spotless Home Services. They needed someone to cover a catering event in Beverly Hills. One of their regular servers had called in sick. It paid $200 for 6 hours of work, almost double what Brielle made cleaning houses. She said yes immediately. The event was at a mansion in the hills, some tech company party. The kind where people wore face masks that probably cost more than Brielle's father's old car and talked about their vacation homes in Aspen like everyone had one. This was July 2020, middle of the pandemic. Most of the world was locked down. But rich people still wanted their parties, still needed their champagne and their catered food and their servers in black uniforms who were invisible unless you needed a refill. Brielle stood in the kitchen with 11 other servers, all of them wearing masks, all of them needing the money badly enough to risk getting sick. The catering manager gave them their instructions. Smile with your eyes, since your mouth is covered. Move quickly. Do not bother the guests with conversation. Brielle picked up a tray of champagne glasses and walked out into the crowd. She was weaving through clusters of people when someone stepped backward without looking. Brielle tried to turn, but her foot caught on something. The tray tilted. An entire glass of red wine went down the front of a man's white dress shirt. For one horrible second, everything stopped. "Oh my God, I am so sorry." Brielle grabbed cocktail napkins from her apron, her heart racing. This was the kind of mistake that got you fired. That got you blacklisted from the agency. I am so sorry. Let me get club soda. The man just laughed. He was tall, maybe 6'2", early 40s, with silver hair and kind brown eyes. He wore the kind of watch that cost more than Brielle made in 12 months. Do not worry about it, he said, waving her off. His voice was warm, genuine. Seriously, it is fine. I have other shirts exactly like this one at home. Please let me pay for dry cleaning. Really, it is okay. He smiled at her. Actually looked at her face, not through her like everyone else at this party. I am Vincent, and you look like you have had a long day. Something about the way he said it, the genuine kindness in his voice, made Brielle want to cry. Behind her mask, her eyes filled with tears. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who has been there. Vincent took one of the napkins and dabbed at his shirt. Are you in school? Working your way through college? No. I finished school, USC. I have a degree in event planning. She did not know why she was telling this stranger her business. Maybe because he was the first person in 2 years who had looked at her like she was a human being. I just needed the work. Event planning? That is actually perfect timing. Vincent handed her a business card. Heavy cardstock. Embossed letters. I am looking for someone to run corporate events for my company. If you are interested, send me your resume. Brielle looked at the card. Vincent Harrington, Chief Executive Officer, Harrington Global Investments. I do not have much recent experience. I am not just hiring a resume, I am hiring a person. Vincent's eyes were serious. Send me your information. Let me decide if you are right for the job. Brielle left that party at midnight, with $200 in her pocket, and Vincent Harrington's business card burning a hole in her apron. She drove straight to her parents' house, checked on Sienna sleeping in her crib, and opened her laptop. She typed Vincent Harrington into Google. The results made her hands start shaking. Vincent Alexander Harrington, age 41. Founder and CEO of Harrington Global Investments, a tech and real estate investment firm based in Los Angeles. Net worth, $4.2 billion. $4.2 billion. Brielle read the number 3 times to make sure she was seeing it correctly. There were articles about him in Forbes and Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal, photos of him at charity galas and tech conferences, a profile piece from 2 years ago about how he built his company from nothing after his younger brother died by suicide, how he started with $20,000 borrowed from friends and turned it into an empire. He was divorced, no kids, lived in a penthouse in downtown LA, drove a Tesla, donated millions to mental health organizations and veteran services. And he wanted to interview her for a job. Brielle spent 3 hours updating her resume, filling in the 2-year gap with careful language. Family responsibilities, instead of abandoned by husband at gas station. Freelance social media management, instead of desperately trying not to drown. She sent the email at 3 a.m. with a subject line that said, Event Planning Position, Brielle Montgomery. Then she tried to sleep, but could not. Could not stop thinking, what if this was real? What if this was her way out? 3 days later, Vincent's assistant called. A woman with a crisp voice who said Mr. Harrington would like to meet with Brielle on Friday at 10 a.m. at the Harrington Global offices in downtown Los Angeles. Brielle borrowed a suit from Gemma, did her makeup carefully, left Sienna with her mother, drove downtown in her dad's 15-year-old Honda that made concerning noises every time she braked. The Harrington Global building was all glass and steel, 42 floors, the kind of place where the lobby had marble floors and abstract art that probably cost more than a house. The receptionist directed her to the 42nd floor. When the elevator doors opened, Brielle saw floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the entire city. She could see the ocean from here. Vincent met her in a conference room. Still warm, still kind, but now dressed in a tailored suit and clearly in his element. They talked for an hour. He asked about her degree, her past work, how she would handle different event scenarios. He never once asked about the gap in her resume. Never made her feel small or less than or like she was wasting his time. At the end, he slid a folder across the table. This is an offer letter. Director of Corporate Events. Salary is $120,000 a year, plus benefits, health insurance, dental, vision, 3 weeks paid vacation, and a signing bonus of $10,000. Brielle stared at the paper. This was more money than all 3 of her jobs combined. This was more money than she had ever made in her life. Is something wrong? Vincent asked. No, I just... Brielle looked up at him. Are you sure you want me? I have a baby at home. I might need to leave early sometimes if she is sick. Brielle. Vincent leaned forward. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm not just hiring your resume. I am hiring you. I saw how you handled yourself at that party. Professional, under pressure. Kind even when you were clearly exhausted. Those are the qualities I need. As for your daughter, we have childcare on the 38th floor. Or work from home when you need to. I trust you to get the job done. Brielle felt tears running down her face. She did not try to hide them. When do I start? How about 2 weeks? That gives you time to quit your other jobs. She signed the papers right there, hands shaking, heart pounding, hardly believing this was real. When she walked out of that building, she sat in her car for 20 minutes and just breathed. For the first time in 2 years, she felt something that was not exhaustion, or anger, or fear. She felt hope. Brielle started at Harrington Global 2 weeks later. Her first day, she wore the borrowed suit from Gemma and took Sienna to the childcare center on the 38th floor. It had soft playmats and educational toys, and 2 full-time staff members who smiled at Sienna like she was their own child. She will be fine, one of them said, seeing the look on Brielle's face. We will call you if she needs anything. Go do your job. Brielle's office was on the 42nd floor. It had windows, a desk with her name on a plaque, a computer that actually worked, a phone with her own extension. She spent that first week learning the systems, meeting the team, understanding what Vincent needed. He wanted someone to plan and execute corporate events for Harrington Global, investor meetings, company parties, conferences, charity galas. The work was challenging, but it was the kind of challenging that made her brain work in ways it had not worked in 2 years. She was using her degree, using her skills, being treated like a professional, instead of like someone whose only value was how fast she could deliver pancakes, or how well she could scrub a toilet. Vincent checked in with her every few days. How are you settling in? Do you have what you need? Never micromanaging. Never making her feel incompetent. Just available if she needed guidance. At the end of her first month, her paycheck hit her bank account. $10,000 from the signing bonus, plus her first month's salary. Brielle stared at the number on her phone screen and cried. She paid her parents back for everything they had spent on Sienna. She bought her daughter new clothes that actually fit. She got the old car fixed so it stopped making that noise. She felt like a person again. By January 2021, Brielle had planned 3 major events for Harrington Global, an investor conference in San Francisco, a holiday party for the company's 200 employees, a charity gala that raised $500,000 for veteran services. Vincent was pleased with her work. More than pleased. He told her she had exceeded every expectation. And then one day, in late January, he asked her to lunch. Not a working lunch, just lunch. They went to a restaurant in downtown LA that did not have prices on the menu. The kind of place where the waiter knew Vincent by name and brought them wine without asking. I have a confession to make, Vincent said after they ordered. This is not a business lunch. Brielle's heart started beating faster. It is not? I am going to be completely honest with you. I think you are remarkable. Not just as an employee, as a person. He looked at her steadily. And I would very much like to take you to dinner sometime. As a date. Not as your boss. Brielle had not dated anyone since Trevor. She had not even thought about dating. The idea of trusting someone again felt impossible. Vincent, I have a daughter and enough baggage to fill a warehouse. I am not exactly a catch. That is where you are wrong. His voice was certain and confident. You are exactly who I have been looking for my entire life. Someone real. Someone strong. Someone who knows what actually matters. Your daughter does not scare me. Your past does not scare me. I would be honored if you would give me a chance. Brielle said yes. They went slow. Dinner dates where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. Vincent told her about building his company, about losing his brother Daniel to suicide after a bad investment destroyed him, about how that loss shaped everything Vincent did now. Brielle told him about Trevor, about the gas station, about the 2 years of hell, about rebuilding herself piece by piece. She did not hide anything, did not try to make herself look better than she was. Vincent listened to all of it, never judged, never looked at her like she was broken. "You are the strongest person I have ever met," he said after she finished telling him about cleaning houses in Seaside Terrace 3 streets from where she used to live. "The fact that you survived that and came out on the other side, that is incredible." They went on coffee dates where Vincent met Sienna and made her laugh by making funny faces. Movie nights where they fell asleep on the couch watching something Sienna picked. Walks in the park where Vincent pushed Sienna on the swings and caught her at the bottom of the slide. He never pushed Brielle for more than she was ready to give. Never made her feel like she owed him anything. Just showed up, consistently, proving with his actions that he was nothing like Trevor. He met her parents. Marcus liked him immediately when Vincent asked about his army service and actually listened to the answers. Gloria liked him when he told her that her sweet potato pie was the best he had ever tasted, and could he have the recipe. By summer 2021, Brielle and Sienna had moved out of her parents' house and into a penthouse in downtown LA that Vincent owned but rarely used. By fall, they were spending most nights together. By winter, Brielle realized she had fallen in love with the man who had saved her life. Vincent proposed on a Saturday morning in June 2022. No fancy restaurant, no elaborate setup. Just the three of them having breakfast on the penthouse balcony. Sienna was eating pancakes and getting syrup everywhere. Brielle was drinking coffee and reading the news on her tablet. And Vincent knelt down next to Sienna's chair and said, "Hey, sweet girl, I have a very important question to ask you." Sienna looked up from her pancakes, syrup on her chin. "What? How would you feel if I asked your mama to marry me?" Sienna's eyes went wide. "Like a princess wedding?" "Exactly like that. With a big white dress? The biggest white dress you have ever seen." Sienna clapped her sticky hands together. Yes, ask her." Vincent turned to Brielle and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Brielle Montgomery, you are the strongest, most incredible woman I have ever met. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and you turned it into strength. You raised an amazing daughter. You built a career. You never gave up. And I would be honored if you would let me spend the rest of my life showing you what real love looks like. Will you marry me?" Brielle was crying before he even finished. Yes, God, yes. The ring was a 3-carat diamond that caught the morning light. It was the most beautiful thing Brielle had ever seen. They set the date for the 18th of November 2023, gave themselves almost 18 months to plan. Brielle threw herself into the preparations with the same energy she brought to everything else. She wanted it perfect. Not for show, not for Instagram, but because this was her second chance, her real chance, and she was not going to waste a single moment. The 18th of November, 2023. The cathedral in Santa Monica smelled like white roses and expensive perfume. 400 guests filled the pews. Tech CEOs, movie producers, politicians, the kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and had vacation homes in 3 different countries. Brielle stood in the bride's room wearing her $50,000 Vera Wang gown and tried to remember how to breathe. This was real. After 5 years of hell, rebuilding and learning to trust again, this was actually happening. Sienna stood next to her in a custom flower girl dress, all dark curls and big brown eyes. 5 years old now, beautiful, smart, the little girl who Trevor had abandoned and who now had a real father figure in Vincent. "Mama, you look like a queen," Sienna said. Gemma appeared in the doorway wearing dusty rose silk, tears streaming down her face. "They are ready for you." Vincent looks like he is about to cry. The doors opened. Brielle walked down the aisle on her father's arm. Vincent stood at the altar in his tuxedo, silver hair perfect, and when he saw her, his whole face transformed. His eyes filled with tears. His smile shook. This was it. Her fairy tale. Her redemption. Her proof that surviving was worth it. And then crystal shattered against marble. The sound cut through the music like a gunshot. Every head turned toward the 5th row. A man stood there with his hand frozen where a champagne glass used to be. His face had no color. His mouth was open. He looked like he was staring at a ghost. Because the man was Trevor Montgomery. Brielle's bouquet fell from her hands. Trevor's eyes moved from her face, to her dress, to Sienna, scattering petals. The blonde woman next to him, in a red dress, was pulling his sleeve, whispering frantically, clearly embarrassed. But Trevor did not move, just stared. Vincent stepped forward. "Brielle?" His voice was protective. Concerned, Brielle understood immediately. Trevor had been invited as someone's guest. He had no idea she was the bride. He expected a normal wedding. He did not expect to see the woman he destroyed walking down the aisle about to marry one of the richest men in America. She picked up her bouquet and finished walking down the aisle. She would not let him ruin this, not again. The priest started the ceremony. Brielle forced herself to focus on Vincent, on the vows they were saying, on the life they were building together. I, Vincent Harrington, take you, Brielle Montgomery, to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do us part. His voice was steady. His hands held hers tightly. I, Brielle Montgomery, take you, Vincent Harrington, to be my lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do us part. Behind her, she could still feel Trevor's eyes burning into her back. By the power vested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Vincent kissed her softly. The cathedral erupted in applause. They walked back down the aisle together as husband and wife. As they passed the fifth row, Brielle heard the blonde woman's voice, sharp and confused. Trevor, who is that woman? Do you know her? Why are you acting like this? And Trevor's voice, broken and hollow, that is my wife. That was my wife. And that little girl, that is my daughter. The reception was at the Four Seasons Hotel. 200 guests, crystal chandeliers, an ocean view, a band that had played at presidential inaugurations. Everything perfect. But Brielle could feel it. That awareness. That tension. Trevor was still here. Somewhere in this ballroom. Watching. She was in the garden outside the ballroom, taking a moment to breathe, when she heard footsteps behind her. Brielle. His voice had not changed in 5 years. She turned slowly. Trevor stood 10 feet away, looking smaller than she remembered. Older, thinner. His tuxedo was rented. His shoes were scuffed. You need to leave, Brielle said. Her voice was cold. Right now. Please, just 5 minutes. I need to explain what happened. Explain what? The anger came fast. Explain how you sent me into a gas station and drove away. Explain how you locked me out of my own house. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever had to rebuild yourself after someone broke you, drop a comment below. Tell me, what gave you the strength to keep going? Because Brielle's story proves that the person who saves you is often yourself, and the life you build from the ashes is always better than the one that burned down. Thank you for listening. Comment below if you want to know how this story ended.